Carl Jung unearthed a profound truth that will utterly revolutionize your perception of empathic pain. He discovered that the very experiences empaths are typically advised to shield themselves from, intense emotional suffering, are, in fact, the essential crucible for forging what I term psychological invincibility. Conventional wisdom often paints empaths as inherently fragile. Society propagates the notion that profound feeling renders you weak, and that absorbing the emotions of others leaves you exposed and vulnerable. Yet, Jung's extensive research unveiled precisely the opposite. Empaths who master the art of alchemizing their pain do more than merely recover, they emerge truly untouchable. Here's the core of Jung's paradigm-shifting insight. When an empath encounters intense emotional pain and actively, consciously processes it, they cultivate an intrinsic fortitude immune to external circumstances. They forge what Jung meticulously called the transcendent function, the remarkable capacity to sustain opposing psychological forces in dynamic tension until an entirely novel and superior state of being materializes. This transformative journey isn't merely about mending past wounds to revert to your former self. Rather, it's about utilizing those very wounds as raw, potent material to evolve into a being far more powerful than you ever imagined possible. By the culmination of this profound journey, you will grasp that your pain is not a deficit. It is your ultimate wellspring of power. However, the truly revolutionary aspect of this discovery lies in its defiance of common therapeutic paradigms. While most approaches counsel managing, controlling, or protecting against empathic sensitivity, Jung held a radically different view. He understood that empaths are not fundamentally broken individuals requiring repair. Instead, they are alchemists in nascent stages, requiring the precise framework to realize their potential. The fundamental question, then, isn't how to diminish feeling or erect barriers against pain. It is profoundly how to transmute suffering into strength, vulnerability into power, and wounds into invaluable wisdom. Jung dedicated decades to meticulously charting this very process, and his findings stand to challenge every preconceived notion you hold about the nature of empathy. Reflect, for a moment, on every instance you've absorbed someone else's anguish, every time you felt excessively, every wound that cut disproportionately deep. What if none of that was actual damage, but rather an intricate preparation for something truly extraordinary? Jung's exploration of medieval alchemy was not merely an academic detour into primitive chemistry. It was a groundbreaking revelation of a symbolic blueprint for psychological transformation. He posited that ancient alchemists weren't just attempting to convert base metals into gold. They were, in essence, documenting the intricate process of transforming the base matter of human suffering into the luminous gold of awakened consciousness. For empaths, this profound alchemical journey commences with what Jung termed the Nigredo, the blackening phase. This is the harrowing period when you find yourself drowning in the emotional currents of others, absorbing pain seemingly beyond your capacity to process, feeling utterly crushed by the weight of sensitivities you never solicited. The common impulse is to hastily escape this phase, erecting emotional walls, deliberately shutting down empathy, or seeking solace in numbness. But Jung's crucial discovery was this: attempting to circumvent the Nigredo irrevocably forfeits the profound transformation it uniquely offers. The inherent darkness is not the adversary, the avoidance of it is. Consider a narrative illustration that powerfully demonstrates this principle. Imagine an empath who spent years unwittingly absorbing the unspoken trauma pervading her family. She intuitively registered her mother's depression long before it was ever verbally acknowledged. She carried her father's anxiety as if it were an intrinsic part of her own nervous system. By her 20s, she was emotionally depleted, utterly convinced that her empathy was an unshakable curse. Traditional therapeutic advice often directed her to establish firm boundaries, to safeguard her energy, to care less. Yet, upon encountering Jung's profound work, a staggering realization dawned. She had been approaching her empathy from an inverted perspective. The objective was not to diminish her capacity to feel, but rather to consciously engage with what she felt. to process it with such profound intentionality that it would utterly transform both her inner landscape and the very nature of the pain itself. Jung famously wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." For empaths, this isn't merely abstract philosophical wisdom. It functions as a precise operational instruction. Your profound pain is not arbitrary suffering. It is, in fact, the intense heat of the alchemist's forge, meticulously incinerating everything false, until only the pure, unadulterated truth remains. Herein lies the common misunderstanding of the empathic experience. Many perceive empaths as passive sponges, helplessly saturating themselves with whatever emotional currents surround them. However, Jung envisioned empaths as robust crucibles, containers forged with sufficient strength to hold intense psychological material while it undergoes its necessary transformation. When you absorb another's anger, you are not simply burdened by their emotion. You are providing an essential inner space for that anger to be witnessed, processed, and, ultimately, transmuted. When you deeply feel someone's grief, you aren't just experiencing their loss. You are powerfully demonstrating that grief can be contained and endured without obliterating the one who holds it. This explains the profound intensity of empathic pain. You are not exclusively processing your own experiences, but rather serving as the conduit for the raw psychological material of everyone within your sphere. Jung understood that this extraordinary capacity, when consciously cultivated, blossoms into an unparalleled power. Crucially, there exists a pivotal transition point that definitively determines whether your empathy ultimately consumes you or profoundly transforms you. And that transformative shift commences with a clear understanding of the fundamental distinction between unconscious absorption and deliberate, conscious alchemy. This brings us to the inherent controversy stirred by Jung's work, and precisely why many established therapeutic approaches continue to resist this potent truth. Empaths who consciously embrace and engage with their pain actually become intrinsically stronger than individuals who have never possessed such profound depth of feeling in the first place. This assertion directly contradicts nearly everything modern psychology teaches concerning emotional regulation and self-protection. The standard protocol typically advises minimizing exposure to painful emotions, establishing rigid boundaries, and intentionally limiting one's emotional receptivity. Yet Jung's extensive research with profoundly sensitive individuals consistently revealed an entirely divergent pattern. We observe this dynamic with remarkable clarity in composite case profiles meticulously constructed from strictly observed patterns. Consider the trajectory of an empath who endured profound emotional trauma during childhood. She developed an extraordinary ability to discern every micro-expression, to instinctively sense danger long before it manifested, and to feel the emotions of others with the same piercing clarity as her own thoughts. While most therapists might label this as hypervigilance and seek to diminish it, Jung would unequivocally recognize it as an advanced form of psychological perception. Empaths are not flawed. They are alchemists in dynamic progress. What began as a vital survival skill had, through her development, evolved into an undeniable superpower. When this individual learned to collaborate with her sensitivity rather than battle against it, she didn't just cope with life. She cultivated what I term emotional invincibility, the unwavering capacity to navigate any psychological space without being overwhelmed or consumed by it. Here's another cornerstone of Jung's understanding that utterly alters everything. Empaths don't need to diminish their capacity to feel. They need to develop what he called the container, psychological structures robust enough to hold intense emotional material without being consumed by it. Consider, for a moment, the forging of metal. You don't create strength by shielding the metal from heat. You create strength by exposing it to searing temperatures while meticulously maintaining its structural integrity. The intense heat fundamentally alters its molecular structure, creating new bonds capable of withstanding colossal pressure. Empathic pain functions precisely in the same manner. Each time you consciously hold another's suffering without collapsing under its weight, you are actively fortifying your psychological structure. Every instance, you feel deeply and steadfastly maintain your inner center. You are actively constructing what Jung termed the transcendent function, the mastery of holding opposing forces in a dynamic, creative tension. However, let's directly address the inevitable resistance this concept provokes. Many will exclaim, "But I am utterly exhausted from feeling too much. How could that possibly make me stronger?" Jung's answer would fundamentally challenge your very assumptions about the true meaning of strength. Traditional strength is often conceptualized as resistance, building walls, shutting down, rigorously protecting oneself from external forces. But Jung identified a far more sophisticated form of strength, resilience through integration. This is the profound strength that arises from the ability to encounter any psychological material, no matter how daunting, and actively transform it. Imagine someone who has never faced a true challenge offering advice to a survivor who has emerged from a searing crucible, telling them they need to be more careful. The survivor possesses an indelible knowledge that the comfortable person simply cannot comprehend. When you have literally walked through fire and emerged intact, you cultivate an unshakable certainty that no external circumstance can ever destabilize. This is the quintessential untouchable quality that empaths forge through the conscious processing of pain. You become an individual capable of witnessing any emotion without being destroyed by it, of holding any psychological tension without fracturing, of walking into any situation with the unwavering inner knowing that you possess the inherent resources to handle whatever may emerge. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." For empaths, this complete self-acceptance necessitates embracing both your extraordinary, profound sensitivity and the diamond-hard strength that has been forged through it. Now we arrive at Jung's most provocative insight regarding empathic development. When you master the skill of consciously engaging with your pain, your empathy undergoes a radical transformation, from a mere vulnerability into what I describe as weaponized discernment. This concept does not imply using empathy to harm others. Instead, it denotes the cultivation of a precision-level perception that allows you to instantly pierce through deception, manipulation, and carefully constructed false personas. Jung aptly termed this remarkable capacity seeing the shadow in others, the innate ability to recognize precisely what people diligently hide, vehemently deny, or consciously suppress within themselves. Here's the psychological mechanism at play. When you have consciously processed and integrated your own pain, you develop a sophisticated internal database of emotional signatures. You become intimately familiar with the myriad variations of grief. You instantly recognize anger masquerading as feigned concern. You can discern fear meticulously masked by an outward show of confidence. You achieve fluency in the nuanced language that distinguishes authentic emotion from expertly performed emotion. Let's examine a narrative illustration that powerfully clarifies this phenomenon. Consider the profile of an empath who endured years in a relationship with an individual who presented as emotionally available, but was, in truth, deeply defended. She consistently felt a perplexing disconnect between his words and his underlying energetic presence, yet she struggled to articulate it precisely. After extricating herself from that relationship and embarking on profound inner work to process her own pain patterns, something fundamentally shifted. She could suddenly identify emotional incongruence within mere seconds. When someone declared, "I'm fine," yet their energy screamed distress, she didn't just sense it. She could precisely name the specific flavor of what they were concealing. When an individual projected an image of unwavering confidence, but was, in actuality, overcompensating for profound insecurity, she could instantly perceive the intricate mechanism of that compensation. This is neither magic nor mysticism. Jung would explain this as advanced pattern recognition, operating at an exceptionally refined level. Your empathic system has been diligently absorbing emotional data throughout your entire life. When you consciously process your own pain, you unlock the clarity required to accurately interpret the patterns in others. But here's where this capacity truly becomes potent. Most people are susceptible to manipulation because they are inclined to believe the narrative someone presents. Empaths who have rigorously processed their pain are immune to this specific vulnerability. They have intimately experienced every variety of false comfort, witnessed every conceivable form of emotional theater. They are fundamentally impervious to manipulation because they can instantly detect inauthenticity. Jung wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." When you have courageously confronted your own soul through conscious pain processing, you instantly recognize when others are meticulously avoiding theirs. You discern the intricate defense mechanisms, the carefully curated persona performances, the projected shadows. This culminates in what I call empathic sovereignty, the unwavering ability to interact with others without being drawn into their unconscious dramas. You can bear witness to someone's pain without internalizing it. You can recognize someone's manipulation without being adversely affected by it. You can perceive through false personas without any compulsion to expose them. This is the definitive shift from empathic vulnerability to empathic power. You are no longer a passive sponge, indiscriminately absorbing whatever comes your way. You become a precise detector, an insightful translator, a consciousness capable of reading psychological reality with unparalleled precision. If you've developed the ability to immediately sense deception, comment, "I see what others hide." Jung spent decades meticulously studying the process he termed individuation, the profound journey towards psychological wholeness. For empaths, this journey unfolds through specific, transformative stages that systematically convert pain into power. Allow me to illuminate the precise process Jung identified. Stage 1. Conscious recognition. The initial stage is the pivotal acknowledgement of your empathic nature. Crucially, emotional absorption is not random. Jung discovered that empaths unconsciously absorb the precise emotional material they internally need to process within themselves. When you consistently encounter angry individuals, you are, in essence, being compelled to examine your own intricate relationship with anger. When you continually attract wounded people, you are being shown your own unhealed internal wounds. This stage demands radical honesty. You must cease perceiving yourself as a passive victim of others' emotions and begin recognizing yourself as someone unconsciously drawn to specific emotional patterns for a deeper, intrinsic reason. Jung termed this owning your projection, the profound realization that the external world often serves as a mirror reflecting your internal landscape. Stage 2. Active processing. Once you consciously recognize the pattern, the second stage involves what Jung called active imagination. This entails deliberately and consciously working with the emotional material you have absorbed. This is not about intellectual analysis alone. It's about allowing the emotions to flow through you, while steadfastly maintaining a detached witness consciousness. We can observe this principle clearly through composite case profiles. Consider an empath who consistently absorbs the anxiety of others. Instead of attempting to immediately discharge the anxiety or distract herself from it, she learns to sit with it, to deeply explore it, and to comprehend its underlying message. She consciously inquires, what is this anxiety attempting to protect? What deeper fear resides beneath its surface? What intrinsic wisdom does it carry? Through this profound process, the anxiety ceases to be a foreign burden she is carrying and metamorphoses into valuable information she is actively processing. The true transformation occurs not through eradication, but through profound integration. The anxiety subsequently reveals intricate layers of human experience that dramatically deepen her understanding of both herself and others. Stage 3. Boundary alchemy. Jung profoundly understood that psychological boundaries are not rigid walls. They function as intelligent filters. The third stage involves cultivating what I call conscious permeability. You learn to be openly receptive to emotional information while simultaneously maintaining your immutable inner center. You become capable of feeling someone's pain without it becoming your pain. You can sense someone's fear without it automatically activating your own fear response. This refined stage actively creates what Jung called the transcendent function, the sophisticated ability to hold opposing energies in dynamic tension. You are simultaneously open and protected, deeply empathic and truly sovereign, fully available and utterly untouchable. This profound paradox is the unmistakable signature of empathic mastery. Stage 4. Transmutation. The final stage is the zenith. where your consciously processed pain becomes the profound wisdom you are uniquely positioned to offer others. Jung wrote, "The wounded healer is the archetype of human transformation. When you have consciously and meticulously transformed your own suffering, you become intrinsically capable of guiding others through similar, profound transformations." However, this is not about assuming the role of everyone's therapist. It is about embodying a distinct energetic frequency that automatically elevates consciousness in your immediate surroundings. People intuitively sense they can be authentically themselves with you because you have courageously been authentic with yourself. They recognize they can safely explore their own shadows with you because you have profoundly integrated yours. This marks the glorious completion of the alchemical process, from unconscious absorption to conscious processing to fully transmuted wisdom. Your pain doesn't merely heal, it becomes potent medicine for the collective consciousness. Herein lies the revolutionary core of Jung's work, and precisely where most empaths encounter the greatest resistance. The ultimate goal isn't to merely heal your empathic wounds. The true objective is to utilize those very wounds as potent portals to an entirely different, elevated way of being. Jung penned, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For empaths, becoming who you truly are necessitates accepting that you will never comfortably fit into the constrained boxes society constructs for normal emotional functioning. Your exquisitely wired nervous system is simply not designed for superficial interactions. Your profound psyche is not wired for shallow connections. Your very soul will never be satisfied with comfortable, superficial lies. The absolute climax of empathic development occurs at the moment you cease striving to be less sensitive and instead begin to fully own your sensitivity as an unparalleled evolutionary advantage. This is not about pride or presumed superiority. It is about the profound recognition that your extraordinary capacity to feel deeply serves a purpose far grander than your personal comfort alone. Consider a narrative illustration that brings this into sharp focus. Imagine an empath who spent decades diligently attempting to heal her sensitivity, as if being empathic were an inherent flaw or wound. She meditated incessantly to diminish her feelings. She rigorously set boundaries to minimize her experiences. She meticulously developed strategies to protect herself from emotional overwhelm. Yet all of these efforts inadvertently kept her trapped within the limiting belief that her empathy was the fundamental problem. The profound breakthrough arrived when she encountered Jung's transformative concept of the wounded healer. She realized, with breathtaking clarity, that her wounds were not insurmountable obstacles to be overcome. Instead, they were powerful initiations into a form of consciousness that most people never access. Her pain had profoundly cracked her open in ways that unveiled deeper dimensions of human experience, dimensions others simply could not perceive. At that precise moment, everything irrevocably shifted. She ceased her attempts to heal her empathy and began, instead, to actively develop it as a sophisticated skill. She immersed herself in understanding how emotions intricately move through complex systems. She learned to meticulously track psychological patterns across generations. She discovered, unequivocally, that her sensitivity was not a bug in her programming. It was, in fact, her programming's most sophisticated, advanced feature. Jung observed that individuals who courageously embrace their psychological complexity evolve into what he termed conscious individuals, people who live authentically from genuine self-knowledge rather than passively from social conditioning. For empaths, this translates into recognizing that your profound depth is not something to ever apologize for. It is something to meticulously cultivate. The empowered empath of 2026 bears no resemblance to the stereotypical, wounded healer who self-sacrifices for others. They are psychologically sovereign, emotionally precise, and interpersonally untouchable. They have meticulously transformed their sensitivity from a vulnerability that others might exploit into an unassailable superpower that others cannot penetrate. This is the definitive shift from empathic suffering to empathic mastery. And it demands the acceptance of a truth most people resist. Your pain was never the problem. Your resistance to your pain was the problem. Jung's final, illuminating insight about empathic development will utterly transform your understanding of your own journey. When you fully integrate your pain, You don't merely become strong, you become truly untouchable. Not untouchable in the sense of being cold, aloof, or disconnected. Rather, untouchable in the profound sense that external circumstances can no longer destabilize your internal equilibrium. You have walked through so much purifying fire that ordinary heat no longer affects you. You have processed such immense depths of pain that typical suffering ceases to overwhelm you. You have integrated so much of your own shadow that the projections of others simply bounce off you, harmlessly. Jung called this elevated state psychological wholeness, the seamless integration of all aspects of the self into a coherent, unified consciousness. For empaths, this wholeness signifies embracing both your extraordinary, profound sensitivity and the diamond-hard strength meticulously forged through conscious pain processing. Let's specify what this practically looks like. The untouchable empath can confidently walk into a room teeming with chaos and remain perfectly centered. They can bear witness to someone's profound breakdown without absorbing its intensity. They can hold sacred space for intense emotion without becoming overwhelmed by it. They can discern manipulation without being affected by its insidious influence. This is not dissociation or emotional detachment. It is mastery. You are fully present, deeply feeling, completely aware, and absolutely sovereign. You have cultivated what Jung termed the self, with a capital S, the organizing center of the psyche that transcends mere ego identification. Here's the undeniable pattern that emerges when empaths complete this transformative journey. They cease attracting wounded individuals seeking salvation, precisely because they are no longer unconsciously seeking validation through rescuing others. They no longer experience empathic exhaustion, having learned to process emotional material in real time rather than accumulating and storing it. They become impervious to manipulation because they perceive psychological games with crystalline clarity. Most significantly, they discover that their empathy becomes exquisitely refined, not diminished in sensitivity. Jung understood that heightened consciousness does not eliminate feeling, it profoundly clarifies it. When you are no longer drowning in unconscious absorption, you can perceive emotional truth with laser-like precision. We observe this principle vividly in the patterns across individuals who achieve this advanced development. They report an uncanny ability to intuit people's authentic intentions within minutes of meeting them. They describe sensing when someone is truly living authentically versus merely performing a role. They explain that they can perceive the subtle quality of consciousness in a space even before anyone utters a word. This is empathy that has evolved from a profound liability into an undeniable asset, from a debilitating wound into a powerful weapon, from vulnerability into invincibility. And Jung recognized this as irrefutable evidence of consciousness development that serves not only individual growth, but also collective evolution. Your pain, consciously processed, becomes wisdom that elevates everyone you encounter. Your wounds, completely integrated, become profound portals through which others can glimpse their own potential for healing. Your empathy, fully mastered, transmutes into a potent frequency that transforms consciousness wherever you go. Carl Jung unequivocally discovered that empathic pain is not something to eliminate, protect against, or minimize. It is, in essence, the very crucible through which extraordinary consciousness is forged. Every single moment you felt excessively, absorbed too deeply, or carried pain that was not intrinsically yours, has been meticulously preparing you for this profound transformation. The alchemist's crucible doesn't just heat metal. It fundamentally transforms its molecular structure, forging new bonds that can withstand pressures the original material could never tolerate. Your empathic pain has been performing precisely the same alchemical process upon your psyche. Every conscious encounter with suffering has been diligently strengthening psychological structures, deepening perceptual capacity, and forging the untouchable core that unequivocally defines empathic mastery. Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." You are not defined by the pain you have absorbed or the wounds you have carried. You are definitively defined by what you consciously choose to do with that raw, potent material. The empowered empath does not merely heal their sensitivity and return to normal. They alchemize their sensitivity and utterly transcend normal. They become living demonstrations of advanced consciousness development, walking proof that depth is not weakness, and feeling is not fragility. Your pain is your power. Your wounds are your wisdom. Your empathy is your evolutionary edge. Stop apologizing for feeling deeply and begin instead weaponizing your inherent depth for conscious impact. If this transformative journey resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in this profound process of metamorphosis, comment below, "My pain is my power." Let's collaboratively build a community of empaths who profoundly understand that we are not here to conform to the world's limited definition of normal. We are here to powerfully demonstrate what is truly possible beyond normal. Your depth is not your damage. It is your destiny.